biology, task number 4, and we're going to be performing a differential. So I've got my slide, been letting it dry here, and so we're just going to pop that on the microscope. We're going to start at the 10 power objective, okay, and just kind of focus that in, make sure we can just do an overall cursory look here. Make sure that our staining is adequate, etc. Okay, so I'm going to pop back over here in this region, get closer to our feathered edge, kind of the counting area, looking at all that. Okay, so our staining's adequate. Going to go ahead and go down to the 40, or up to, I guess you could say. Alright. Double check something real quick. Okay. Okay. So on the 40, kind of doing the same thing here. Again, we're just kind of doing a cursory look over here, making sure our staining is adequate, etc. Okay. Good. Down to the starting place, and then we'll get on our power here. Okay. Alright, so as we get over here to our 100, I'm going to flick that. Got some oil. I'm going to put that on. Get back up here at the top. Alright, so we have a reference area. Alright. Okay, so we're going to go through here and we're going to count our number of neutrophils, eosinophils, basophils, monocytes, leukocytes, platelets, and so we're going to go through and count 100 and then figure out our percentages from there, and then we're going to look at platelets and any abnormalities in those white blood cells as we go. Okay, so 1, 2, so I've got 3 of those. I want to count this one as a band. I'm going to go ahead and write band under here just because of the way it's a horseshoe shape in the cytoplasm. Okay, there's a monocyte. Automatically read off. Get back up here. Okay. This looks like leukocyte. There's another neutrophils. So the more I do this, the better I get with it, and I think that's really, probably the purpose and the case with it. And we don't really do these much up here, but it's certainly helpful if you're wondering, something's wrong with the morphology of the cell and that kind of thing. So, okay, so this is kind of a basophilic staining. I'm going to go ahead and put one down there on the basophil. And get some more neutrophils up here. Oops. Okay. Some more neutrophils. Okay. Another leukocyte. Let's say that's a monocyte. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 6. Gracious, there's a lot not filled. Okay, so the monocytes there. Okay. Next. Looks like we have a couple of eosinophils here. Oops, come on back. One more. Okay. And another good reason that we probably should include this more is because a lot of times your automatic machines, your automatic counters and things like that can miss things and cause things to clump together. So looking at this, you can kind of get an idea, especially on the platelet part of it. Bless you. Okay. Another leukocyte. One, two, three, four, 5. looks like a blue basophil. About 40 more to go here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Look us up. Okay. 1, 2, 3. Looks like another Lucas out there. One, two, neutrophils. So as you're going through here, you can kind of think, okay, with your numbers, you know, is automatically, is this cat normal? Yeah. I said cat. Sorry, this is a dog's. I did a cat while ago for a blood smear or blood film, but this is actually a dog. And 1, 2. And so your neutrophils are going to be the more common of the white blood cells. And so you can just kind of keep track of that in your head as far as like, hey, what am I seeing more of? You know, and possible reasons that could cause that. Okay, so I mean, so far so good. We've got the majority of these are the neutrophils. One that I really felt like it was a bad neutrophil, but if one in the whole mix of this, if that's all there is, that's okay. And we'll talk about causes of all those guys here in a little bit. Okay, let me see. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40, 45, 50, 55, 65, 75, 78, 79, 81, 82, 83, 84. Keep track, 84. Basophil, looking, there's no basophil. 5. Okay, 86, 87. Another basophil. 88. Lycosat. 89. Okay, 90. 90, 92. Okay, 94. I was kind of trying to decide on that one. Another leukocyte, 95. Six, 98. Oh, sorry, 97. 98, 99. Okay, right, so what we're going to go through and do is add these up. 5, 10, 15, 67, or really 68. 8, 9. Okay, so, and then let me go through real quick and look at our platelets. Let me see some. I'm just going to test something just real quick. Okay. Alright, going back down. Of course, the oil immersion objective, you want to use the oil only with that because none of the other objectives are fitted with the particular seals and things like that that the oil objective is. And so, of course, if you use oil on another one, that could ruin that objective. Okay, so going through, looking at platelets. Let me get a little better area here. Okay. So, on these are a little bit different. You go through per field rather than counting up to 100 of those. Okay, I'm going to go with, say, 6. No, let's go 8. Okay, so on our math, all we're doing is looking at our percentages here. So we had 68 neutrophils, so if we just turn that into a percentage, we got 68% neutrophils, 2% eosinophils, 5% monocytes, 8% leukocytes, 9% basophils, and then on our platelets, that makes it 8,000 per field. All right, so here's all of our math. All you do is just count your little, make those little marks, check marks as you go, as far as counting them. And then let's talk about, talk about what can cause these different increases. So first off, I like to keep a picture nearby just to make sure and remind myself of, what it's like. What do they stain like? And as far as neutrophils go, if you have increased neutrophils, that can be from increased stress, increased fear. It can be an inflammatory response. If they decrease, then that could be due to some sort of infection or systemic infection, decreased bone marrow, chemical toxicity, things like that. And then if you have a banned neutrophil, that could be different, disease processes going on there, inflammation, toxicities, and things. Lymphocytes, if those are at an increased number, stress again, inflammation again, excitement, fear, all sorts of things can cause that. If you have reduced lymphocytes, maybe there's a decrease in the corticosteroids in the system, and monocytes increase in if there's an increase, that could also be due to the corticosteroids and corticosteroids. I keep saying that wrong. I'm so sorry. Stress. Eosinophils. I always remember eosinophils because when I have an allergic reaction, that's automatically what I think of. For allergies, of course, the immunoglobulin E, antibody E, and those can also be due to parasites. Basophils, if there's a decreased number, hyperlipemia, excessive immunoglobulin E stimulation. And as far as looking at our pictures, let me set this right here. Let me put the name on this. This is Scuttles, actually. So I don't forget, that's actually Scuttles Farmer. odd name, but there it is. Okay, so on our pictures, okay, let me check the camera and see here. Okay, on our pictures, examples of our neutrophils. Okay, so you can see how the nucleus is segmented, and then you can look and see how the cytoplasm is stained, and then some of your band neutrophils are kind of a horseshoe shape, and they just become more and more hypersegmented. Okay, so lymphocytes. These guys, they're easy to get confused with some other things, just the way that they are. But lymphocytes are usually kind of a little bit larger and globular nucleus, from oval to round. They are still kind of the purpley staining there. Okay, so usually these guys are a little bit smaller than a neutrophil, so that's one way to remember that. If we look over here, monocytes, I sometimes get monocytes confused with the lymphocytes, but you can see that they're actually a little bit more of a purple staining. You can see how these little vacuoles in the cytoplasm are actually a little bit more clear. But again, looking at their nucleus, they can kind of look like a little bit of a glob, but usually they're going to have a little bit more of a defined nucleus rather than a lymphocyte. Okay, down here, let's go ahead and go down here. Here's just another monocyte. Okay, different, just a different view there. Again, they are a little bit more of a bluish, purpley, kind of a gray than the lymphocyte. And here's some examples of your eosinophils. And usually these guys are a little bit larger than your neutrophils. And you can see how they have different granular staining. And so they're kind of more of a pinky, but they have more of that cytoplasmic staining. So that's one way to differentiate them from the neutrophils, as you can actually see those little granules better on an eosinophil. Okay, so our next type here is let me raise that up a little bit. Our next type here is a basophil, and basophils, you can kind of see some of their cytoplasmic, you don't want to call them inclusion, but some of their cytoplasmic staining there, so they're somewhat granulated, but they're not like the eosinophil. So you kind of have to differentiate on that basis. So they don't stain just real well, but the ones you do, you can see and tell the difference. Right. Here's another example. Make sure we're here where you can see it here. Another example of the nucleus and an eosinophil. And so on your neutrophil and an eosinophil. So your neutrophil, you can see how it's highly segmented. Eosinophil, you can see how the cytoplasmic granules are very noticeable, and they kind of stain in gray. And so that's really it as far as your different types go for your white blood cells. And then, of course, when you're going through there, you want to look and see if there's any sort of different inclusions that are on there. If you notice anything on the red blood cells, of course. But I didn't see any abnormalities, anything that would indicate any basophilia, and stuff like that. So I didn't notice that there were any inclusions. Of course, if there are, you certainly want to write that on the file and bring that to the doctor's attention. I think that's about it for our white blood cell. Of course, we write the results down, include it in the file, let the doctor know what we found. And a lot of times they'll want to come through and just take a little look too, and just because they're for their own curiosity as well. All right, that about does it with task number 4.